Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Real Reviews with SOC, and we have the whole panel with us. We got a couple of people in here. Let's go around and give our names. Let's start with Darth Vader over there in the corner. Who could that possibly be? Who's the special guest?
Dun, dun, dun.
Boom! And who's that guy?
How's it going, everybody? This is Benjamin Handelman. You've seen me in the chats, all the BK chats, all the Michelle Turner chats. I follow Nate 2D2 everywhere he goes, so I had
Cool. Welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to have you on. All right, Michelle Turner, what's up?
No, I'm Boba Shell. Thank you.
Well, let me put the names back on. Let me get this all right. Blah,
Mandalorians don't like to be played with like that.
Oh,
he ain't no Mandalorian. Where's your helmet?
I am.
Where's your helmet?
I'm doing you guys a favor.
You're going against your religion.
I'm doing you guys a
Apostate
favor.
Mandalorian. Get out of here.
Apostate Mandalorian.
This is the way. This is the way. This is the way.
Oh man. All right, Boba Shell. All right, so Nate 2D2, what's going on, man?
Hey everyone, I am the Nate 2D2, the TA of UA, Token Asian of Urban Apologetics.
This guy, Token Asian. Yeah, okay, all right. So that's this. All right, so BK Apologies, what's going on with you, man?
Yeah, what's going on? Party people in the place to be. It's the BK Apologies transmitting all the way live. New York is the city. Brooklyn is, or should I say Tatooine is the borough.
There you go.
Thank you for at least pretending to be in character.
Oh my goodness.
We all can't be, like you, Boba Shell.
All right. Well, of course, everybody knows who I am. My name is Jordan Ortiz, also known as SOC, Servant of Christ, and welcome to Real Reviews with SOC. Today, we are going to be reviewing perhaps one of the coolest series on television or on Disney Plus. I can't even say television anymore. Everything is streaming. But so we're going to be talking about the Mandalorian season 2. So let's see who's in the chat. Oh, Benjamin Handelman's there. There you go. He's there. He's omnipresent here. So he's there and there. Yeah, he's using the Force. He projected himself kind of like Luke did in the movie, right? He put himself. All right. We got Warrior Woman in the chat. What's going on, sis? Welcome. Let me see. J-Man said, did you see my movie request? Yes, I did. You wanted me to do the American Gospel. I may put it in the rotation. I'll check it out and see if we can get that going. Let me see. Phil Fox, what's going on, bro? Blessings to you as well. And listen to Phil Fox. Make sure you smash that like button. Keith Covington, what's going on, buddy? Thank you for being here. D-New, what's going on, sis? Welcome. And D-New shouts out Benjamin with exclamation points. I'm not counting them, but she really excited to have you on, bro. Rox B, Ben and Nate together on a panel. That's so cool. Well, BK, Michelle, and me, we might as well just leave. And just leave these guys on.
That's what I was thinking. We might as well just go. Let them two just do it.
Where is the love for the originators? Come on, man.
Boba Shell's not happy about that.
That's right. Right.
Neither is the child. The child. You see him? He's shaking his head at you.
He's like, that force choke. Broxby brought the pizza. That's what I'm talking about. You can't come to the movies without pizza. Let me see who else. And Curly Shanae, welcome. And I did shout out Roxby. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and just walk around the room, get our initial thoughts about the series, the first episode. Let's go ahead. Let's start with our guest, the coolest dude on earth right now. Ben, tell me what you thought overall, without giving too many spoilers before we get into the discussion, what you think about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1. Uh-oh.
Ben?
Can you hear us, Ben?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm your conscience.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I'd see my cameras looking out here. Yeah. I loved I think Disney really leaned into, like, they want those banking on fans, having a good time, enjoying the show. The show leaned into those Western and samurai themes real heavy, which I loved, and they leaned on Star Wars, which who can hate that?
Cool. All right. Boba Shell, what's going on? What you think about the episode?
It was a really great episode. I actually watched it 2.5 times. So I really enjoyed the episode because I was trying to figure out who the person at the end was. And I was like, who is that? And Ben was like, oh, do you see it? And I was like, yeah, I watched it twice. And he's like, you realize who that was? And I was like, what? So I had to go back and watch it after I watched it twice to hear it. I was like, oh my God. So that's why I have to pay homage today to, me.
Bo Michelle. All right, Nate 2D2, man. What you thought about the show, man? How'd you like it?
Man, they really upped it. This was a good episode. The effects were top notch as always, and good story. I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of this season.
Cool. BK, what's going on, man? What you think about it?
Oh man, it was really, really well done. I thought it was gonna be a slow burn, you know what I mean? But off the gate, they're like, nope, we here. You know what I mean? And we're just gonna go to Mach 10 and just keep going. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really great. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Cool. As for me, I loved it. I loved every single second from the intro to the end. Everything was epic. It was, to me, a perfect way to open up season 2 and get everybody amped up. There's a lot of Easter eggs in here. There's a lot of fan service. But to me, one of the things that I loved about it was the fact that Jon Favreau wrote and directed it. And it shows. There's a difference when he does it and the other guys do a stupendous job. But he, I love him as a director and a writer. And, I think he did an excellent job. So, all right. So let's go ahead and start talking about this. Let me get the screen up. So we are on the Mandalorian. Let's see. All right. That opening sequence. I'll just say for me, once this opened up, I felt like, okay, finally, we are in a completely different world. It felt like that. But to me, I really love the urban feel. I felt like it was like a place in the Bronx.
In the 80s.
In the
South
80s.
Bronx in the 80s.
Yeah.
Straight up.
You had the graffiti on the wall. You had the graffiti of the stormtroopers. I thought this was an epic way to open it up. What do you guys think about this scene? How'd you feel when it first opened up, him walking right into this area?
I loved it. For the same reasons, because it did make you feel like he was like in the urban area. And then it shows that, how far he's been traveling from the end of season 1 to season 2, because he's in a totally different setting, a whole different place. And it also shows that even though Baby Yoda is the star, that the Mandalorian can literally carry the show by himself if he had to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed, too, was Baby Yoda didn't get a lot of play in this episode. Go ahead, Ben. I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
But there's a lot of cool things. Yeah, I was saying there's some awesome graffiti on the walls in the background there. You'll see like there's a lot of just weird stuff.
You're breaking up, Ben.
Watching.
Yeah, you're breaking up a whole lot, Ben.
Go through and look. Yeah, I'm gonna disconnect and reconnect, see if that fixes it, because it was working fine a minute ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could jump in and out. That's fine. All right. So for me, like when he walked into the whole scene, and I like the way you look, like this world seemed completely different from because everything's been desert. It's been, even though this is desert, it still kind of has this urban city feel when he walked up in here. And like Ben was talking, there's a lot of little Easter eggs and graffiti in the wall and stormtroopers and all that cool stuff. Nate, what you thought about this opening scene?
Yeah, it felt like you said, it felt different. It didn't I can hear an echo myself. Oh, okay, it's gone. I don't know. It felt. I was trying to think. It reminded me of like other, I don't know, sci-fi properties or whatnot, but it's a different feel. It kind of, I think some similar to what you kind of see of Coruscant in some cases, like on Clone Wars, when you watch the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely kind of a different feel.
Yeah. So like another thing that I kind of noticed with this whole city feel, like when you talked about Clone Wars, it reminded me of Rogue One at the beginning. Remember when like that whole city the whole cityscape, and when he kind of turned on him and killed him and ran away. That's where it feels like he's at, which is what I really like, because it has, again, that urban feel. How about you, BK? What you thought about this area in general?
The minute the scene came on, I'm like, oh, he's in the projects.
Yeah.
Like straight up. That's the first thing I thought. Was like, yo, and this graffiti, the lamppost. I mean, it gave you that really, really, really old school hip hop urban vibe, like 100%. Like it's clearly he's in the wrong part of town. It's very clear. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was dope.
Yeah. For me, I loved it. One thing though, let's see if Ben, let's get your nerdiness going on. What are those?
Activate your nerdiness, Ben.
Activate your nerdiness, man. What are those creatures? I've never, like the ones with the glowing red eyes. Have they ever been in Star Wars before, or are these brand new creatures?
So these ones, I mean, maybe they've named them and I didn't see it, but they're not like, they're just, I think, thrown in there to give you kind of like this, like, ooh, look how scary. It's like, they're like the rats in New York, right? That's what they are. Like, this is what I was always told as a kid. If you go, if you're like stuck out late at night or something. So, you know.
Yeah. So we doing East Coast, West Coast beef, Ben? Is that what we're doing now? Is that what we're doing?
Actually, that's actually true. I've seen a rat the size of a cat in New York.
Oh man!
But one thing I wanted to point out is the graffiti on the walls in that scene. That's what I really loved. Like, there's all these little there's like stormtroopers with X's over them. There's like a C-3PO head over there. Like, they did a good job with making it seem like this is like the underneath, right? Like the prequels, you saw the fancy cities or the beautiful, everything. This, it's like dark, seedy. Like, you don't want to be going to this place, walking around alone.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that. All right. So I don't know if you guys realized it. Ben sent me over the thing, but I had the slide ready. Did you realize that John Leguizamo was actually that dude, that Cyclops dude?
Nah, I had no idea.
Dude, I didn't know. Like, I watched the whole episode at first. I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I watched somebody else do a review on it, and they were like, yeah, John Leguizamo, his name is... I'm like, what? Because he's one of my favorite comedians. I love John Leguizamo as a comedian. He's a funny dude. But when I went online, I looked, I said, let me see who this dude is. And I was like, yo, he's the first dude in the beginning. I said, man. So do you think, like, for example, like, do you think there are going to be other stars coming in the future who are going to be doing things like this where they come up, they don't tell you who they are? Because I know in one of the Star Wars movie, I think Daniel Craig was one of the stormtroopers. And so now we got John Leguizamo. I forget this guy's name. Ben. It's
Korish, I think is how they pronounced it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his name.
I wrote it down. It was, yeah. But no, look, if you were an actor like John Leguizamo, wouldn't you want to like get your way into Star Wars somehow?
Oh yeah.
Right? You'd be like, yeah, just put me, like, I'll be in the background, or you can cover me with makeup. I don't care. Just let me be in it, please.
Yeah, because now you're an official canon member now. Now you actually exist in the Star Wars world. I would like to be a Mandalorian, to be honest. I just let me do the voice. Just let me play with the robotic voice, and I'd be happy with it. Let me see. So what do you guys think about this character in general? Like, when he first popped up on the scene, what did you guys think about him? What kind of vibes did you get from him?
Shady. But like it looked like he's wearing a suit like a boxing promoter.
Oh yeah, he kind of has that. What's the dude's name?
Don King.
Yeah,
vibes.
Don King vibes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought of him when he first came up. I was like, I don't trust this guy. Like, he hasn't done nothing yet, but I just know not to trust him.
Yeah. What about you, BK? What do you think about this dude, man?
Oh no, he's definitely shady. I mean, like when he was complaining about, listen, I didn't, there's no place to take a kid. You know what I mean? So it's like, so Mando's already like irritated with this dude already off rip. You know what I mean? So he already knew this guy wasn't up to no good, and we know that to be true. So
yeah. All right. So we got to talk about the fight scene right at the beginning. Okay. Now we know we saw the commercial when it first happened, when your boy hit the little Baby Yoda, hit the pod, closed it up when he saw the whistling things coming out. That was, to me, one of the coolest. Like, to me, it kind of showed like now they're in unison, right? Like, they know how to work together. They recognize things, especially Baby Yoda now. And they kind of know, he knows what's going on. But one thing that I did like when the fight started, how he kicked the pod away, like to protect, like he just kicked, like horse kicked it to keep him away from danger. But the other thing that kind of threw me off is like, why are these guys punching the Mandalorian in the head? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're going to punch Beskar with your fist? But it was crazy. But, okay, so what do you guys think about that whole fight scene? What stood out to you? What was some of the elements that you thought were real cool? Maybe something that somebody missed?
So one thing I'll point out is the guy that punches Mandalorian in the head. He's a Zabrak, and that's what Darth Maul was.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's later on in the episode, there's going to be another sort of like a Darth Maul nod, and I'll explain it when we get to it. But yeah, they just didn't have like all the red and black tattoos, but they had that crown of spikes. And yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It's like, well, you're punching him. Come on, punching him in the head. Like, you think he's not cushioned in there? You're breaking your hand. What's going on here? And then also the Gamorreans, the pig dudes. I just remember seeing like the one he like launches over the ropes and just like crashes through the. It was one of those like they're trying to put in a little like goofy comedy, I think, but it's just fun. I mean, really, we're all there just to see Baby Yoda just pop out and hit the little button.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things, like when I first saw it, because I didn't know these characters, the two dudes fighting in the ring, and the first thing I thought about, you guys might laugh, is I thought about Angry Birds. I thought about the pigs from Angry Birds. I'm like, these dudes look just like them, just with arms and legs. Yeah, I mean, just kind of, but it was funny. It was hilarious, man. What you thought, BK? What was you like this scene?
I mean, again, right? It just shows you excellence in execution by the Mandalorian. Like the man got hands and helmets. You know what I mean? It's like he actually, I think, headbutted someone's fist, I think, with the helmet at one point.
Yeah.
But what's also interesting is, again, right, when you think of armor, you think defense, right? But he's using it offensively. He's using his armor as a weapon. And, of course, that always harkens me back to Ephesians 6 about the full armor of God and how, even though it's used for defense, you know what I mean, Paul's talking about offense, about standing firm. And once again, the Mandalorian standing firm against his enemies, and he's using the armor to attack as well as defend. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool. All right, so now we definitely got to talk about the scene that happened right after he rolled and beat up everybody, and your boy started to run away. Now I know it's John Leguizamo, so I'm gonna go back and see if I can find some of his mannerisms and everything. The Mandalorian ropes this dude up, grabs him by the ankles, hangs him over the light, and starts, to talk to him and try to get the information. And the moment that dude says, "You're not going to die by my hand," I'm like, oh, he's going to die.
Automatic.
How many, I don't know if you guys thought about this, but how many of you probably thought that this dude, like Baby Yoda, was going to come out the shell and just kind of force choke that dude? That's what I thought was going to happen. I was like, that would have been hilarious. I probably wouldn't.
And I didn't think Baby Yoda was going to be the one to kill him, because I don't think he would want to kind of corrupt Baby Yoda in that manner, because he's trying to like protect him. So I didn't think it would be Baby Yoda, just because he wouldn't really want him doing that.
I'm with SOC. Like, I've been waiting for like Baby Yoda to use Force Lightning or something, right? Just because you could just see like a little lightning coming out of his hands, it'd be awesome. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, that'd be dope. Because at first I was like, is he gonna have Baby Yoda force choke this dude out? Now, of course, I was like, that's out of character, but that would have been hilarious if he would have just opened the shell up and just kind of.
He's done it before, right? Like he did that with wasn't it Cara Dune in the first season?
Yeah, he force choked her. I was like, man, that's why I was like, is something gonna happen? Because I didn't expect him to just hang him. But what do you think?
Mando has to be in some sort of danger for him to do that. He knew that Mando was completely in control, so he wasn't even thinking about that. He got it. He good.
Let me see. Keith Covington said, if you want to save some money, a group I am part of that is dedicated to Doctor Who is streaming the whole series.
Oh, that's next level nerddom.
Yeah, that's Nate 2 D2 nerddom level. I can't reach that level yet.
I don't think I'm at that level right now.
But I want to get there. I want to be part of that group, man. Let me see. All right, so I guess we'll just move on to the next one if nobody has anything else to say about that whole scene. Okay, let me get it. All right, so he lands on the planet, right? He lands on back. He makes his way back to Tatooine, and he goes home, kind of. And my whole thing was, I loved how the lady just welcomed Baby Yoda. She was like, oh, "You brought him back," and he just like, And then of course she called him a womp rat. Okay, I have a question, because the womp rat, was that what we saw running around earlier? Like I don't know if it was in this episode or later on in this episode where there were actually like rats. Was that a womp rat? I don't know if you guys saw it or not.
Yeah, I think so. They've never, like been real clear calling them out, but they did show them in the previous Tatooine episode as well. But yeah, they look like little like baby kangaroo type things.
Yeah. All right. So she basically comes here. And of course we see, hopefully I don't mess this name up. R5D4. Did I get it right? All right. So we get R5D4. Now, there was a debate online. People were debating whether that was the actual R5D4 that was at Tatooine in the old Star Wars movie. And some people said it's not. Let me get your guys' opinions before I let you know what
Ben?
It's got the burn marks on the back of his head from where, like, if you go watch the original movie, and I can throw the clip in chat because I pulled it off of like StarWars.com, where he blows out the back of his head, and so like Luke's yelling at him like, come on, and he slowly starts moving, and then he blows up. This one has burn marks in the same spot. And then this lady whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, but she's like complaining about how slow it is and how she can't get good help. So it's definitely meant to be the same one.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was the same one too, because she said his motivator is broken or something like that. And, he couldn't because he had problems, the first episode, he had problems, and that's why they ended up taking R2D2. So yeah. So I love the fact that they came back to this character and she was there. I like her character, believe it or not. I mean, she doesn't have a whole lot of play, but I do love her character. Okay, so now we also have to talk about the big change we saw in Mando when he lands and the droids are coming out. And of course, she's like, no, don't, he hates droids. But then he switches up the game and says, no, I think, the Starcrest needs a once over. What do you guys think about that whole character change? And of course, talk a little bit about how he came to that conclusion and like why he now allows droids to work on the ship, whereas in the first season he didn't before.
Well, obviously it's his experience with the IG unit.
Mm-hmm.
This robot was programmed to be this ruthless, merciless killer, and it did a complete 180, and it was completely selfless, and actually killed itself for the betterment of a people. And and Mandalorian didn't want him to die, because he grew fond of this robot because he saw the change, right? And I mean, not that androids can repent, but but he basically did, right? Repent is change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
His OS system was literally different. So in a technical sense, he did repent. It was a completely different unit.
Mm-hmm.
And he proved that he was by his deeds.
Yeah.
Right? Because he was told that he's changed. But when he saw him change and give his, well, for lack of a better word, his life
mm-hmm.
for the others, clearly there was repentance, and that repentance had a profound effect on the Mando now when it comes to droids. So.
Definitely. I like, for me, one of the okay, that was Ben's thing echoing. That's fine. It's okay. So for me, like, I love, one of my favorite parts of the last season was IG-11, because to me it was a perfect example of what it means to disciple someone and get and you can see the change happening in the character, because we know Quill was the one there working with him, and he said with patience and affirmation. And as Christians, our goal is to go out there and actually affirm and to be patient and disciple people, no matter how or what background they came from, but to actually be patient with them to see that transformation. And also remember, IG-11, when he first started, he was all over the place. I mean, he couldn't operate right. He was breaking things. And it's the same thing with new believers. New believers come into Christ. They don't know everything. They don't know how to explain the Trinity, talk about doctrine, it's brand new to them. But with patience and affirmation, we can really guide them. And at the end, do you see how lethal he was? He was great at protecting Baby Yoda, but at the same time, he was good at taking out these dudes. And, for us as Christians, we're here to kind of shatter false doctrine. So that's what he was doing with those stormtroopers. The stormtroopers were the false doctrine, and he kind of just wrecked shop on them. But it's just to kind of let people know that, hey, listen, man, as Christians, our goal is to help people grow. Is to help them grow and not to be impatient and to think that they have to know everything within a year. Well, you say you believe in Jesus and you can't explain the Trinity yet, you're not a good Christian. No, you got to give people a chance to understand, to learn, to grow. And so my whole goal, just like with this show, the goal is to be able to speak to people from a different perspective and actually get them to kind of see some of the things that we see in scripture readily, but people who maybe not study the Bible can't see that. And so our goal is to say, hey, listen, the Bible's not too far off from what you're looking at now, but let me just kind of put it back in context for you so that way you can have a better and a closer relationship with Christ and hopefully become a follower of Christ and become a Christian. That's the goal. But yeah, to me, the IG-11 was like the pinnacle scene for me of all of the last season. Now, of course, there was a whole bunch of really cool scenes in the last season, but IG-11 hit me right in the throat when I was like, and I started piecing it together. I'm like, oh, this is so dope. You know what I mean? So I got excited. So I don't know. What else you guys like about, let's just talk about the season in general. Like what popped out to you?
So I was just going to say, for those that don't know, IG-11 was also a famous guy underneath, the voice, not obviously in the CG, but it's Taika Waititi, I think is his name. He directed JoJo's Rabbit.
Yeah.
That was him. And he directed at least one of the episodes as well. But yeah, so it was reminding me of Ezekiel 36:26. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you, and I will remove from you a heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. So just it happens with IG-11, but also happens with the Mandalorian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see that in this episode with how he treats the droids. But more than that, we see it play out throughout this episode, right? Like that he's no longer just in it for the money. Right now he has a purpose, and he says it in the scene. He has a quest now, right? And if we look back to like medieval times and knights questing and what that meant, religiously and everything, we can sort of see this play out in the show, like throughout the first season and then into this very episode.
Definitely. All right, BK, Nate, Boba, you guys have anything else to say about that? We ready to roll on in?
Is BK saying something?
Yeah, I was trying. He was on mute.
My bad. No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well,
All
actually,
right.
I had something to just kind of notice. I think these opening scenes, with just him coming out and saying, why not have the droids kind of take over? We're kind of seeing in the beginning now that they're just giving little hints that, okay, the Mando is not the same person that he was in season 1, right? Like you can see that in season 1, I mean, he's obviously still living with that trauma that he had as a kid, right? That's why he had issue with the droids. He lost his original clan, his family, and obviously the Mandalorians were kind of a family in a way. But when you see in the we can kind of roll back a little bit in the fight scene when the Baby Yoda knows what's about to happen before the fight, he just automatically, okay, I'm going to get into my shell, kicks him away. Like that they've been traveling for maybe a little while, not that long since the last season, but they're a unit now, right? We see in the end of the last season, when he takes on the responsibility of finding Baby Yoda's family, they say, okay, now you're a clan of 2, right? He gets the mud horn on his thing, and it's funny because it's almost like you're saying it is like this is the way, right? Like this is his obligation, his responsibility. But the lady Mando, I don't know whatever her name is, the Womando. She kind of says, "Well, this is the way." Like saying it like you have to do this, but more like you get to keep him. You get to be his father, or he is your ward, right? He's like the Bruce Wayne to Dick Grayson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Batman, Robin reference there if you don't know. And then just seeing him being okay with the droids, like it's showing that he's this burden that he's carried with him has been lifted off, and he's like this new person, right? He's a kind of a father now. I guess you're kind of seeing Batman with Robin now, right? So it's a different person. He's happier. He's got purpose. I think that's kind of what BK was alluding to. He has a quest, right? And so it's just kind of interesting that they kind of give these little nods without actually like beating your head over it, without giving these expositions where he's like he's not talking to someone. He's like, I'm a different person now. You can see it. You can see that he's kind of found a different trajectory, and I think it's just kind of it's interesting, as I always say.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, like when you touched on the fact that, it was a traumatic experience that caused them to be a certain way. And I think all of us can probably relate to some degree that, we've had certain experiences And then after those experiences, we kind of treat the world in the way we've been treated, or we try to kind of, we self-project that. And so, it's hard for some people who have been mistreated or been mistaught to then kind of look at things the right way. It's a process of time that it takes for an individual to kind of unfold out of all that, to unlearn everything. And that's what happened with me. I'm just speaking from experience where, I was taught a certain way, and I looked at the world that way, and the way I was taught. And so what ends up happening is that over a period of time, I started to realize that the way I was looking at the world was not reality, but it wasn't reality because I was taught about the world a certain way. And then after, I had to unlearn all that stuff. So I think it's important when we're teaching people about the Bible that we take that into consideration, where we look and say, hey, man, this person has had an experience. Let's not just totally dismiss them and say, oh, well, we don't care about you. You need to get it together now. You know what I mean? So my thing is, as Christians, we need to be merciful. And let me see, Phil Fox down here, he said, there's nothing like good character development. You're absolutely right. That's my favorite thing in every any show or any film I watch. I want character. I want to know about the character. So yeah, definitely. All right.
And I just want to say, if you want some personal character development, Servant of Christ Ministries has a Patreon with a James 2 study available for the $10 tier. So make sure you go and sign up, because James 2 specifically deals with how we live out our faith, correct? Yep. How we change as people, as Christians, we should be different from the world. So just throwing that out
thanks,
there.
Man. Thanks.
I think Ben is hired.
Yeah, he hired. All right. Boba Shell, you got anything to say, or are you ready for the next slide?
Let's get to the next slide.
Right, let's rock and roll. Boom. This dude, this is probably the biggest star of this episode, kind of, because everybody was like, what? All right, so let's just talk about it. So Timothy Olyphant, or Oliphant, however you want to say it. I say Olyphant. I don't know how you properly say it. Maybe that's the right way. Maybe that's the wrong way. But anyway, this dude pops up, and he's wearing whose armor?
Mine.
Wearing the Boba Fett armor. Now, of course, when this dude pops up, I am in no way thinking that this is the actual Boba Fett. Maybe some people had that like, oh, it's Boba. And I'm like, nope, because that armor looked like it did not fit him. He looked.
And his walk wasn't a Boba Fett walk either. Like, just looking at his mannerisms in the Mandalorian suit, you was like,
he looked like a
Boba
cosplayer.
wouldn't be walking like that. Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, you could tell, like, just his mannerisms. Like, that's not. I mean, if you don't watch Star Wars, you might be like, oh, that Boba Fett. But if you watch Star Wars, you'd be like, no, it's a good try. No, we're not food.
Oh, man, I put it. It looked like he bought like the child's outfit at Target and tried to like shove himself into it, because it ends at like his rib cage, right? It's like, how's that offering protection? I don't get it.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But okay, so who else thought like once so I was gonna say Boba, but when Mando walks into the bar and he says he's looking for a Mandalorian, the guy asks him what he look like. I was like, he's about to get smart with him. He's like, he looks like me. I was like, come on, man, you know the answer to that question. But okay, your boy comes in. So this to me, like, it screamed Western when he walked in and he just stood there and he's just there at the bar and he looks at him and then he's like, well, let's sit down and have a conversation. When he said, let's sit down and have a conversation, he got the spotchka, right? He said, I was like, oh, he's about to take off the helmet and Mando's not going to be happy. So of course, what happens? He takes the helmet off and Mando's like, and I was watching somebody talk about it and they were saying how it was amazing how the actor, like, you could almost see the expression on Mando's face through the helmet and how the actor, kind of played that role really well. So what do you guys think about that whole scene?
So one thing that stood out we all know Timothy Olyphant, and he's basically just playing Space Raylan Givens from Justified, right? Which is perfect. I loved it. But one thing I thought was interesting about the scene is you mentioned it's like a Western. Well, the guy playing the Weequay bartender played his bartender when he was in Deadwood, and he was the marshal in Deadwood. So it's even the two same actors in the same roles. Again, they were going deep on this like Western samurai theme, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, where Pedro Pascal, when he sees Timothy Olyphant take off the helmet, you could almost feel him tense up, right? Like you could see, you can't see a single thing about his face, and you know everything he feels right in that scene. And I think it's brilliant in the way they directed it. and the way he acted it out, so that you really understand like how serious this moment is. It's not just a joke. It's not a funny like, oh look, it's space Raylan Givens or Seth Bullock, right? Like he's like, oh wait a second, you're not a Mandalorian. You don't get to wear this armor.
Yeah, and so I guess I shouldn't show the picture anymore because it looks like Roxby's getting all hot and bothered over Timothy Oliphant. She said, "Yep," and he's pretty. Also hilarious. All right, Roxby, I guess I'm not going to show the picture anymore. I don't want to cause a stumbling block for you, sis. All right, so BK, Nate, or Bo Michelle, what you guys think about this scene?
I agree with Ben. It was very well played, and just like knowing, but I think that's a nod to Disney with the first season, that we could feel what he was feeling in that moment without even seeing his face.
Yeah.
For me, so as we know at this point, we know that the armor is not just a protection; it's part of his theology, right? Mm-hmm. And he is deeply devoted and has deep convictions about being a Mandalorian. So to see someone wearing the outfits void of, void of conviction, but what did you said?
She said, "Ooh, someone's going to reference David B."
Right? I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's good though.
She called that was a good one. That was a good one, sis. I didn't even think about that.
But seeing that, right? First, I think when he first saw the dude, Mandalorian already knew something's off, and then the guy takes off the helmet, which is for him is sacrilege, right? It's blasphemy. Mm-hmm. You have an air of Mandalorian, but you refuse its power, right? So he's offended from a theological standpoint. How dare you act as a poser to my belief system? Mm-hmm. And I think as believers, we get irate when we see people who claim to be of Christ, but we see that they live a lifestyle that's contrary to it. We feel very offended by that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same thing with the Mandalorian. It's like, this guy's playing games. You're a cosplayer. You're not a Mandalorian. This ain't Comic-Con. This is real life. You're playing games with me, and I'm about to kill you right now. So.
Right. Maybe sometimes we feel like, let me take that Christianity back, because you're quite not wearing it right.
Let me get that Bible from you, fam. You're not reading it right. You know what I mean?
So yeah, we sometimes we might get like the Mandalorian, but at the same time, we like I talked about earlier, it's a fine balance, because you don't want to be too hard on maybe somebody who's new to the faith, or maybe he doesn't really know how to wear it quite right. But you also want to be able to point that out, just like Ben brought up earlier about James too. Because James brings it out. He says, hey, listen, you're not walking according to the faith you profess to have. So is that faith that you have really true, or is it genuine, or you're just playing around? And he gets down and dirty in James chapter 2. I mean, in James, yeah, he gets down and dirty in that chapter. But I think it's a scripture, and it's something that everybody should actually just kind of take the time to kind of walk through and use it as a self-examination tool. Right. Because, again, he's not talking to unbelievers in that chapter. He's talking to people who are already believers. That's the scary part. Right. He's like, listen, you guys say you have faith, and based on your behavior, the demons have that kind of faith, too. Right. They believe that God exists, but it doesn't change how they act. They still are demons. So he's saying you guys are acting demonic and you're Christians. What's going on with you? So, yeah, I love that you brought that up earlier. But so if anybody wants to see that study, I do have a 10-page on it, but I also have a video that I go into a deep dive study on it as well. You guys could go to my page. It's called Faith Plus Works, James chapter 2. And it's a verse by verse kind of expository on that, which I think will help a lot of people in the body of Christ. All right. So one more time for Roxby. Okay. Let me go ahead and move on to the next one. All right. The fun begins. All right. So let's talk about the Tusken Raiders. For me, I will say this. I actually love them now. Before, I didn't really have a deep connection to them. We always see them just yelling and acting crazy, right? But we never actually get to see, I guess, in a sense, their human side. They're more, I guess, they seem like they've been through a lot of stuff, and they've just been like this because of the things they've been through. So what are your guys' overall thoughts on the Tusken Raiders, the whole scene, and all that other good stuff?
So for me, the connection that stands out right away, and this was the original intent, and I don't think it was a very good one, but they're meant to be the Native Americans in the scene, right? In like the old school Western with the savages, and I'm apologize for the offense that that represents, but you know they're the bad guys. They come in, they raid the village, they kidnap the women, like Anakin's mom. They're never portrayed in a positive light. They're always like, oh, they're out there, they're behind us. They're not civilized like we are. So one of the things I really loved about this episode is it really gives you like, yeah, you're seeing this perspective, you're seeing that perspective, but you're not seeing from their point of view. Hey, you're stealing their water. Hey, they're just trying to mind their own business and you're taking up their area, right? That's their land. Like in America, historically, the Native Americans, not that they didn't have property, but they didn't understand boundaries the same way we do, as far as like the way herds migrated and things. So all of a sudden, someone just comes in and cuts across their territory, and they don't know what's happening. They don't understand, and then they get shot at when they try to figure out what's going on. So one thing I really loved about this episode is it took something that Star Wars didn't always give the best representation to, and it really gave you like a solid like, hey, these aren't the bad guys. These are people too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because you know what? I didn't even think about it from that perspective as far as them being like the Native Americans in the universe. But it is, I see your comparison, because everything that we've seen about them, it's actually like we've been taught a false history, right? It's like, okay, they're just savages. They're just crazy beasts. Oh, they don't have intellect. They're not smart. They're just crazy. But then when we actually look at it, it's like, wait a minute, they have rules they live by. They have loyalty. They have, there's a lot of really cool things about them that I really love. And so I love the fact that you did tie it to how the Star Wars universe may be trying to pull on some, you know, America versus the Native Americans, because you got the Westerns, you know, kind of like your boy, the Marshal, and all those people will represent the Americans, and the Tuscans were like the Native American. I like that. I didn't even think about that before. So what do you guys think? Nate, Boba, and what you guys think about this scene, or at least about them in general? It doesn't have to be a specific scene.
I agree. I like that it gives a little bit more insight into the Tusken Raiders and who they are. And it also makes me think, like, as we go on with these scenes, how you should love your neighbor as you love yourself, even even when your neighbor doesn't look like you and your neighbor is not what you would want a neighbor to be. They had to come together to make the end goal to be met. And I think that reminds me like how the Christian community should be. We should love our neighbor regardless of what our neighbor looks like or how we, you know, feel about them. Even if they're wrong, we can still bring correction, but we should still love them. And then we could still use, we can minister to them to get them to kind of come around, and we could have our own misconceptions about who our neighbor is based off of what we think we know and not what we actually know about them. Because in the one scene, he's like, I'm not going to drink this, and Mando brings it up. He's like, you still his water, now you won't even drink it? Like, like how dare you? Like, you know, how dare you be disrespectful to this man? And even though he had mistreated them like through this whole thing, they still offered him like part of what they had, even though he was being rude and disrespectful to them the whole time. So I think that's a shout out to them.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. As you know, for me, you know, when I see Star Wars, I see like serious ancient Near Eastern vibes, right? Mm-hmm. But in this case, there's a lot of African vibe. Like what they wear on their face, you know, is very reminiscent of some of the African tribal masks that you see, you know. So I always found that, and I never got to see it up close before until now, and I'm like, that it was reminiscent of these masks that you would see different tribes wear. And then of course, you know, the dynamic between them and the townspeople, and it's funny, right? Because I don't know, someone reads Ephesians while they do the Mandalorian, but they seem to really riff on Ephesians a lot for me, because you got these two different people, right? Especially Ephesians chapter 2, right? So you got these two people who don't like each other, who seem like they have a history of being against each other, but now they're both objects of wrath. They both have a common enemy that wants to kill both of them. So now they have to, you know, and of course we're going to talk more about this, I'm sure, but now they have to, join forces because they both are objects of wrath by something that's greater than both of them. And what are we going to do together about this situation? Yeah, so.
Right. And it's interesting because BK, you actually sent me a link, and I'm going to share it now. I thought that was actually pretty cool because it was touching on their sign language. And so let me share it real quick. Well, wrong one. Hold on. Give me a second. All right. So this was the article that BK sent me that he found. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but a deaf actor, Troy Kotzer, creates the sign language, Tuscan sign language for The Mandalorian. I thought that was dope because when we're connecting with them for the very first time, we actually see their communication. Oh, now I got to ask, who else thought it was hilarious that Mando started doing the sounds just like the Tuscans? I thought that was hilarious throughout the whole thing, man.
I thought that was cool too. It shows that he's been around quite a bit, and he's bilingual. Well, he might be multilingual. I'm not sure, but but he can speak many languages.
Yeah.
I like that about him.
I think for a lot of us when we talk about like the Mandalorian, because like we were just introduced to him episode 1, but the thing is he's had a life prior to that. So I would love that maybe they touched on maybe the earlier journeys. I don't know if they're going to do it because they do a lot of flashbacks in season 1 from when he was a little kid. But I would like to see some flashbacks of him maybe trying to learn the language, or maybe him being introduced to them for the first time. Or I think that would be dope to see. But let me just read this little article real quick. It's real short, just to give some people some info. It says, you may not be aware that the sign language displayed by the Tusken Raiders seen in The Mandalorian is far from just hinting at an alien language. Deaf actor Troy Kotzer actually developed TSL, or Tuscan Sign Language, for the show, and he discusses that with Rena Dunn at the Daily Moth. So she says, you mentioned that you were a Star Wars fan since how old? He says, 8 years old. I have been a fan since that age. Remember that in the year of 1977, technology was limited and accessibility for deaf people were limited. But the Star Wars movie blew my mind. It changed my life. Why? It was like wet eyes. So visual for me. For the first 5 minutes, remember the opening of that movie? The spaceship shooting, the robot, C-3PO scrambling, and all of that overwhelmed my eyes. I watched it 28 times. I watched the movie Star Wars: A New Hope 28 times. Of course, she says, oh, wow. Then he says, well, my hearing parents were probably annoyed, but they were fine with it because they would go food shopping every time and then pick me up when the movie was over. She says, wow, I am curious of your view on the Star Wars movies from back in the old days and up until today with all the modern technology in the movies. Do you miss the old days with how Star Wars movies were made, or do you like the modern technology used today? He said, good question. He said, you would need to ask people like your parents' age and your grandparents what's the best movie they have seen. I am sure they would say Gone with the Wind, because it was like the first movie with colors. It had a swear word and other things. So like that Star Wars was our first experience of seeing new things that blew my mind. I do wonder what the next generation's movie inspiration would be. I am sure that is your experience too. So I just thought it was such a cool story that, he had such a connection to Star Wars, and now he's actually working on the sign language for The Mandalorian. What are your guys' thoughts about this whole thing?
I just want to say, I remember like when I was a little kid, the Batman movie came out, right? So like 89. And I remember my parents had to take me to that 3 times, and how they complained that 3rd time, like, oh, we're going to go see it again. And they dropped me off in the theater, and I'm like 7 years old, and they take off, right? Leaving this little kid in the theater. I can't imagine 28 times, and your son is, hearing impaired and stuff. The effect it must have had on him. It must have been just substantial. I can't imagine that.
I mean, it's both nerdy and considerate all at the same time. It's like they created their own, like that's a flex. We have our own intergalactic sign language now. You know what I mean? It's like that's a heck of a flex. You know what I mean? But the fact that instead of saying let's just make stuff up, it's like no, let's go to a person that actually does speak sign language. So that so it could be authentic. And from what we're seeing in this series, the people and the writers of The Mandalorian, they're really considerate about other people. You know, we saw in the last episode, you know, how they got the 501st Infantry, which is a bunch of like really amazing cosplayers, got them involved. They're canon. Now we're seeing that they're actually talking to a deaf. They first of all they have a deaf actor, right? So that was pretty cool, you know. And then had him develop this language. It's like they're very, very, very compassionate and considerate of other people where they're at, and very inclusive, you know, which is really amazing. So again, right, as the church, we can take note of that. You know, there's people that have different gifts, and we need to make sure that these people are empowered and included in kingdom building. You know, because everybody has something that other people cannot do. And we got to make sure that we find these people and that we empower them because they make, quote unquote, the show that much better, right? The church becomes that much more powerful when we allow people who have these certain gifts and can meet certain needs, and we allow them to do that and we get out the way, you know? So that's what I got.
Amen. Amen. Like one of the things I've started doing on my channel, I'm gonna start picking back up on it, is I was creating a lot of audio Bible series, things that you can listen to. And my motivation behind that was for individuals who were visually impaired, who couldn't read the Bible, they could listen to it. You know, and now of course people love Bible studies, they can listen to Bible studies, but sometimes just to hear the word of God, you know, that way they can have the relationship directly with him. And not always just somebody explaining. I think it's very good for people to have the access to that. So I'm going to start picking up on that more. This kind of convicted me. I need to just continue what I was doing in that work. Great job, BK, for convicting me. All right. So, all right, Nate. And Nate, tell me what you think about the Tusken Raiders.
Man, Ben made me feel really guilty about thinking of them as savages now. That's all I thought about them. Thanks, Ben. It's great to have you on the show.
So Ben convicted you, didn't he?
Little bit.
Yeah, a little. Okay. That's cool.
Oh,
that's
by the
cool.
way, I do not have a sharing problem. This is mine, and that's just the way it is.
Wow. All right.
You know what I'm gonna start doing? I'm gonna start bringing candy on the show so that way I can have it while everybody's just chatting it up. Because Nate, every time we come on the show, I'm like, I want like Mike and Ike's or something. All right. So let's talk about this next piece. Whoops. Well, let me share the screen first. All right. Nope, that's too early. You didn't see that? All right. Yeah. You didn't see anything here. Okay. So, of course, this is stuff that I learned after I watched the show, that this dude, the Krayt Dragon, was actually in one of the first Star Wars movies. In that background scene where you see that long skeleton, that's a smaller Krayt Dragon. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So, you know, I'm watching The Mandalorian. So I'm watching The Mandalorian and I'm like, yo, this is a brand new creature. You know, because I'm not Ben. I don't know all the nerdy stuff. You know what I mean? I'm not that Ben. Dude who knows all the ins and outs.
T-shirt. I'm not Ben.
Yeah, you know what? I might make a shirt that says that with a couple of lightsabers. I'm not Ben. But
they're gonna think you're talking about Kenobi though.
Yeah, well then it works, right? I'm not
either
Ben.
Either way.
Right. So anyway, so I'm watching this and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. These dudes were there back then, and then they showed that picture of C-3PO in that photo, and Ben sent me this link as well, and he has a whole bunch of stuff. So Ben, I'm gonna let you nerd out in this part. Tell us a little bit about the Krayt Dragon and all the stuff that you sent me.
Okay, so that first picture with C-3PO walking it. That's from the original movie, and that's in the scene where after they crash landed on Tatooine, R2-D2 goes one direction, C-3PO goes the other direction, right? He's just like sort of wandering around, and so you see this like giant skeleton in the background there. And to be clear, at least as of when they made the prequel trilogy, that skeleton was still there. It's somewhere in Tunisia. Like, it's so remote that no one bothered to clean it up. They just left it. So I don't know if it's still there now. It's been 20 years. There's a lot of Star Wars fans since The Phantom Menace came out, but this giant, snake-like skeleton. They put it in some video games, but it was never like touched upon again in the movies. It's based on, or sort of taken from, the book Dune by Frank Herbert. So I don't know if anyone has read that book. There's certainly a lot of Christian parallels in that story as well. I'd highly Recommend everyone check it out. But they had these giant sandworms. And so that's sort of what the idea is taken from, that they burrow through the sand. They're giant, they're monsters. And then one little thing I'll point out is, so in the bottom left, you see the Tusken Raider holding up a pearl. And when we get to that scene, I'll explain what that is. But that's actually something that relates to when you guys talked about Rogue One.
You could get into it right now.
All right. Okay. So what happens is these giant crate dragons, they eat things, and sometimes they eat stuff they can't digest. And in the case of the pearls, their kyber crystals sometimes get caught in their gut. And so like they're being digested over however long it takes or whatever, and they turn into these perfect pearls. And so those are actually used in the Old Republic video game. I guess there's some special thing you can find and buy. And they sort of feature prominently at the end. Like there's this great scene where he digs it out and he's holding it up, and then they all cheer. Kind of like the Jawas in, was it episode 2? With the egg, right? Except, they don't eat this.
Yeah, definitely. And quick shout out to Rox B. She was telling when we were having the Patreon meeting, she was telling us about the series of Dune. Now, I saw the movie a long time ago, the old school movie, and to be honest, I don't remember anything about it. But the picture I just shared on the right hand side that you see right around here, this is actually how it's going to look in the new film, right? This is different from what they have in the original movie. But I definitely want to, I think I'm going to revisit it. I think it just came on, I want to say HBO Max. They have the original Dune on there. So I might go back and check that out just to kind of prepare my mind. And maybe I'll jump into the series because Ben and Roxby said it was really good. So I definitely want to look at it. But yeah. So yeah, because when I first saw that, I'm like, yeah, they're really happy about this pearl. And I'm like, like the first thing I'm thinking, I'm like, is that an actual pearl or am I misseeing it? But you confirmed it. It is a pearl. But they use it for a saber in the future, right? Like, that kind of pearl is used for like lightsabers, or I think it's called a different kind of saber, though. What's it called, Ben?
I don't remember what they're called, but they make like a loud noise when you use them and stuff too. It's really weird. And I don't know if they're gonna like ever put that in the show. Sometimes I think with Star Wars things, like the creators are even more nerdy than I am about this stuff, right? And they're like, well, what if the pearl is actually a kyber crystal? And what if someone puts that in their lightsaber? And then like we need to explain all of this away in detail, right? So there's like a guidebook or whatever that kind of talks about this. To me, I just thought it's like a giant pearl. It looks cool, and you get that scene as they're like digging through the crate dragon. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see that play a part in things later too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool. Okay, so we got to talk about the crate dragon, the effect. I can't hear you, BK. You trying to talk? Go for it, man.
Again, the Great Dragon, right? I guess maybe this might be a good segue. Again, ancient Near East, right? They pull heavy from the ancient Near East. They literally call this thing the Leviathan. They actually use the term. You know what I mean? It's something we see in the Book of Job, Book of Enoch. It's a chaos monster. Right, and in Mesopotamian creation mythos, the god, whether it's Marduk or Baal, has to defeat the chaos monster in order for there to be order in the universe. And what's interesting is there's no water, but it cuts through the sand as if it's in water. Right? It's like Jaws. You see the fins and everything. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So they had to kill this thing in order for there to be peace. So that's a heavy riff in ancient Near East mythology right there. I mean, they literally call him the Leviathan. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So for me, like, okay, I'm just going to talk about the special effects just in plain. They nailed the special effects in this because, after you watch series 1, you're like, okay, it's cool. They filmed on scene. And then you find out that they're in this whole studio that's filled with screens and how well it looks. And so I'm over here trying to be a smart guy. And it's like, okay, let's see what the mistakes are where I could kind of find, where they're filming with screens. And I can't find it. Like whoever is responsible for the special effects on the show is superb. And so with the Crate Dragon, when you look at the picture on this side, you like, okay, it's not that big, right? It's like, okay, it's a long snake. But then you see the Crate Dragon that they have in the Mandalorian. And that thing is technically about the size of a mountain. I mean, because the way, and I think that was a real cool scene too. Like when he went back in and then he just came out the top of the mountain and then he was just coming out in different areas. I thought that was really cool. So what you guys think about like the effects on the crate dragon? Did you like it? Did you not like it? You know, or did you get like what's the name of that old school Tremors? Did you get Tremors vibes from it? You know, what'd you guys think about it?
No, it was awesome. Like, and the fact that they studied this the Leviathan as deep as they did, where they knew it was at, they knew its habits, they knew how to lure it out. Like that reminds me of 2 Timothy 2:15, study show yourself approved, because they literally had all the information they needed in order to drag this thing out, in order to kill it. So I really appreciated like the effort that it would take to learn so much information about this creature that you're afraid of.
One of the other things that I did like was the teamwork. So we got to see the savages now. Thanks, Ben, for that. So now we think about the savages, and then we think about also the Marshal and his people, and they're actually working together to kill a common enemy. But you see that they're working together well. You know what I mean? And everything is going the way it should be. But like one of the things that surprised me, because I thought the creature was vicious enough, but when it opened his mouth and the venom started hitting everybody, I was like, that's crazy. Like, I'm like, how much more deadly can you make this thing? It's like they were just like, let's make him the size of a mountain. Let's give him a bunch of teeth. Let's show that a bunch of bombs can't kill him, and let's have him spit venom. I was like, okay, you're making this guy almost undefeatable. But also, I think what played here as well was I think that they were trying to kind of set up for Boba Fett when it showed the Mandalorian go in and blow him up and then make his way out, because now it kind of brings like, okay, it's possible that Boba Fett could have gotten out right after he fell into the Sarlacc pit. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, that's funny that you say that, because they said that there's no such thing as an abandoned Sarlacc pit, right? And it's like there is if you eat one. Right, so if he can escape out of the crate dragon, I guess that probably maybe makes it a little bit more plausible that somebody else wearing Mandalorian armor should be able to get out of a Sarlacc pit, right?
Right.
There's some details I don't want to hit on just yet until we discuss some slides that people didn't see earlier, but I think Nate hits it right on the head. Like this idea that like, okay, well, Mando escaped a crate dragon's like acid venom stuff, and he's fine. And if the crate dragon can eat the Sarlacc, maybe someone else wearing Mandalorian armor is fine too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk about it now. I think I have like maybe one more slide, so if you want to jump in on it.
Okay. So the one thing, with Timothy Oliphant's character, Cobb Vanth, he wasn't created for this episode. Actually, he was created in some novels like 6-7 years ago, and in the novels he buys the Boba Fett armor, but it's all like acid burned and stuff. It's almost unrecognizable. But in this show, the armor's fine, right? Like it still works, right? Like the little visor thing comes down, the missile out of the backpack that like got Kenner in trouble back in the 80s for kids swallowing them. Like it worked, and we're gonna see at the very end of the episode. You see sort of a mysterious figure overlooking as the Mandalorian leaves with his giant piece of like crate dragon pot roast there, and which is something that, I mean, he literally, that's his payment. It's like this giant piece of meat. It's kind of strange, but he's driving away, and you see this figure standing on top of a bunch of rocks overlooking things, and then he turns around and you see his face, and it's Tamora Morrison, the actor who played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, and he's looking all like real serious. His face is all scarred up, shaved head, and he starts walking away, and you hear the sound of spurs. And so there you see him, right? He's aged, but in the original, so in Attack of the Clones, when they explained Boba Fett's backstory, his dad was Jango Fett, and he's not actually his son. He's an exact clone that Jango Fett was raising as his kid. And if you ever go watch the Clone Wars TV series, they play up on a lot of this. And it makes me kind of wonder if later on in the season, since the Mandalorian is looking for Jedi, and Boba Fett has a lot of experience with Jedi, if they may make that connection. But here he turns around and when he starts walking away, you hear that sound of spurs. And again, that spurs sound is something that Star Wars uses because they're connecting this to the spaghetti westerns that Clint Eastwood was in. And so in the original films, Boba Fett, he only has 4 lines, right? He's barely in the films. But when he walks, you hear this and they did it with Jango Fett too, and they do it with the Mandalorian. And in the scene where he's walking away, you hear that sound. And you also heard it back in episode 5, the first time they were on Tatooine. At the very end of the episode, Ming-Na Wen, I can't remember the name of her character, is dead, and you hear the sound as someone walks up to her body. And you know it's not the Mandalorian because they already left. So they've been sort of building to this. Something I mentioned before is I think Disney really wants to make Star Wars fans happy after maybe a couple movies didn't go as well as they would have liked with the fans. So Disney's like, oh, you know what? Everyone loved Boba Fett. We're bringing Boba Fett. Boba Fett's here. Look how tough he looks. Look how, like, that look on his face, man. You know you want that action figure now, right? Like, you gotta have that. So and that idea that like this armor, it still works, right? It's still in good condition. So if the armor made it out, that was sort of that hint that like that armor didn't just come from nowhere.
Right. All right. Any other thoughts on Temuera Morrison? Like for me, when I saw it, I was shocked. I was like, because I thought they were gonna wait, bring him in maybe later on in the series, but first episode, like that shocked me, because I was waiting. I knew something was gonna happen because of the way they filmed the shot when the Mando was kind of going away on the speeder bike, and they kind of started zooming back. I'm like, what they're gonna show now? And then they showed the back of the figure. I was like, oh, it's Boba. Oh, that's Boba. And then when it turned around, and I was shocked because at first I thought they might get a different actor to play him or whatever, but they got the guy who actually played him, and I thought that was amazing. What you guys think about Temuera Morrison coming in and actually kind of bringing back his character?
I'm excited to see what they'll do with the Boba character because he wants to take the child to someone who operates in the Force. And this is going to be interesting to see how all of this play out with Boba Fett.
Yeah. BK, Nate?
Because I'm thinking, well, okay, so if the idea was to connect with another Mandalorian to help him find the space wizards, right? The Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So Boba, who does he know that might know these Jedis?
Oh yeah. I know he had an encounter with Luke.
But even before Luke, who did he went to go capture once?
Oh, I'm forgetting.
Han Solo.
Oh, okay.
So I'm thinking, is this a connect? We might see Han and Chewie. You know what I mean?
Oh, that would be dope.
Because he doesn't have a direct connection with any Jedi, but he knows people that do know Jedi, and that'd be Han. So that'd be interesting if they bring Han in on this now and Chewie, and then,
that would be cool.
I mean, we're talking fan service,
right?
Yeah.
All right. So Keith Covington asked a good question because that's one of the things that I was thinking. Which one is he, the real Boba Fett, or is he a clone of Boba Fett? I think is the real Boba Fett. I don't think they're gonna bring a clone to do something like this for fan service. I think the fans will be highly upset if that turns out to be a clone because everybody is hyped up waiting for Boba to show up. And to me, it's like when you look at him. Let me bring up the picture again. You can see, I don't know, it's kind of a dark figure, but you can see the scars on his face. I'm gonna imagine that was him trying to get out of the Sarlacc pit, maybe that's just hardened battle scars, just fighting or doing something. Ben, what do you think that is?
So the reason I don't think it's one of the other clones is because the clones that were the clone troopers, so like Rex from Clone Wars and stuff, Rex is still, he was still alive as of Return of the Jedi, right? But they aged twice as fast. And that was a big story point, is they've got to age these clones fast because they need an army. But Boba Fett was an unaltered clone. He aged normally. And so if you watch Attack of the Clones, all the clones are 20, in their 20s, and he's the real clone. So he's still the son, but he is a clone also. He's an unaltered clone. And so in this, if you look at Temuera Morrison, if you look at a picture of him from I feel so old because this is like 17, 18 years ago now, right? Like Attack of the Clones. I was an adult when that came out, and now like I literally walk with a cane, so I guess that's okay. But he he's just the right age now, right? Like now he's in his late 40s, and Boba Fett. So this would be like 30 some odd years since that. So Boba Fett's also in his late 40s. So it's just the right age. Like the actor just he's perfect for the role to play Boba Fett right now. He looks the part. He's the right age, and the clones would all look like they're 80 because they age twice as fast.
Right. All right, let me see. Yeah, he said he has one clone that he raised as a son. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap it up. Let's go ahead and let's kind of walk around the room and kind of see, all right, what were any final thoughts about the series, and give me your star rating, 1 to 5 stars. Let's start with the BK apologist. Final thoughts and your rating.
What I found interesting was, because remember when they had that initial standoff, it's like, I need to get that armor back because you're not a Mandalorian. I was kind of thinking, now that they've been through this war together and they've worked together, he'll be like, you know what, let's do some kind of quick ritual and we'll make you an honorary man. Nope, I need that armor, fam. I still need that. But again, it's his conviction, because again, it's his theology, it's his religion. It's like, I'm not going to compromise because we work well together. Right? So again, it's like, we're Christians, so we can't just, for nostalgia purposes, compromise our beliefs. You know what I mean? We can't do that. It's like, well, they meant well, they're a good person inside, and therefore I can let this slide. It's like, we can't. We have a standard that we have to keep. And the Mando has a standard that he has to keep. You're not one of us. You got to give up that armor. And now that the mission is done, I'm going to need that armor, because he stands on his conviction and he does not compromise. And I give this 5 stars, this episode.
Wow. We got a 5-star from BK. There we go. Nate2D2, your rating and final thoughts on the whole series. Well, the first episode, I'll say.
Man, like I said in the beginning, I am excited. They started this out really well. And I think there's still another 8 episodes, or there's 8 episodes in the second season as well, right? So they're not gonna, there's no room for fillers. So they hopefully everything is gonna be like knocked out of the park. But one thing I did want to touch on, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but like what's the actor's name? Is it Pedro Pascal? How he can actually act under that helmet. Like one of the funny things I think I heard in the first season that was a complaint was that people had trouble connecting with him because he always had the mask on, which I thought was ridiculous, because he did such a wonderful job. Just you could tell what he was feeling, and if you can't tell, then that's part of it, right? It's kind of it's a little ambiguous. That's part of the character, but it's amazing what a good job he's doing, kind of just emoting when there's no way to express that with facial features, right? And I think that's something that I wanted to point out. But it was a good episode. I'm something that I'm wondering. I'm kind of thinking about the Marshal, and I was and he's basically like a kind of a friend or an ally now of Mando, right? And I was thinking back to the first season when on the season or episode 4, when they went to that, was it the Krill village or something like that? The village with the Krill farmers. Mm-hmm. A woman, right? That she has some experience shooting a gun. And I'm just kind of thinking, are they like introducing these characters that Mando's going to meet along the way, that they're going to bring back later for like some kind of team or something, I feel like she has a backstory. I feel like she has a backstory that we don't know. I mean, she was in the Empire or something and she left, and now she's like having a normal life or whatever. And I feel like they're going to do the same thing with the Marshal, where like, oh, he's going to come back, and obviously Carl Weathers and Cara Dune's probably going to come back. And so I'm just like, okay, well, what are they? I feel like they're playing a long game here. I feel like they're actually planning this out, as opposed to like the sequel series where they just kind of made it up as they went, and it showed. I mean, it felt like they made up the rise of Skywalker as they went as well. Everything is just like put together. But I give this I give episode 1 of season 2 of The Mandalorian 5 out of 5 stars. And one last thing, did it seem like the Tusken Raiders had a high body count compared to the I just felt like they kept getting eaten, right? Like when they introduced the Krayt Dragon, wasn't that hilarious though? When they were like trying to draw him out, they're like they're trying to use the bantha as bait. It ends up eating the Tusken Raider, and then it goes back, and then the bantha is just there, like whatever. that was hilarious. But they kept killing the Tusken Raiders. That's kind of mean, right? It's like, well, you gotta.
It's kind of racist. Say it, Nate. Say it. It's racist, bro.
Star Wars is racist, right? Jon Favreau is a racist. He just keeps on killing Tuskens. That's a joke, of course. I don't think he's a racist. But Boba Shell, rating and your kind of final thoughts about the whole thing.
So I really enjoyed this episode, especially since I'm in it.
Oh my goodness!
I think that just made it even more amazing. So I would give it 5 out of 5 strictly for my my Mandalorian wear.
I love your humility.
Of course.
Yes, it's amazing.
So yeah, thank you. The child gives it a 3 because that's the amount of minutes he was in it, so he's not very happy about it. So he gives it a 3, and I give it a 5. And since I'm me, I win with the rating. It's not going to be,
right.
It's not going to be a 4.
If we count the child's hand as 5, child. Even those 3 fingers, we're just going to say he actually gives it 5 too. All right. Our star of the show, the man who made us all look smarter about Star Wars, Ben. What's your rating and your final thoughts, and what else that we didn't cover?
What else that we didn't cover?
To be clear, Baby Yoda did have a great scene where he jumped in the spittoon when the Krayt Dragon went through. I don't know if you guys remember that. He's he pulls his little head out and he's like looking around. And all I can think about is like, wait a second, like, do space spittoons, do they work the same as like real ones? Because that's nasty. Like, I don't know about that. But I mean, I loved it because like I'm a fan, so I got to see all these great moments, and you could watch it back a second time. Like they even had the guy that did the voice for Darth Maul in Clone Wars, and he was Darth Maul for like half a second in Solo. He was like the propane tank delivery guy in one scene. Like they put so many Easter eggs.
Oh wow.
So Sam Witwer, he was in some of the video games and stuff too, for those who want to Google it. But they put so many things in that, like they really want us Star Wars fans to like enjoy it. And so I did. I thought it was great. I love, like, Boba Fett he's only in the original movies for less than like 5 minutes. He has 4 lines, but his toy was so popular, they brought him back in the comic books and in the novels. And I was like that age where I was just consuming all of that media and I loved it. And so when they changed everything up and then they implied that he was dead in the books, it was one of those things like, man, Disney just doesn't get why people like Star Wars. But then they brought in Jon Favreau and they promoted Dave Filoni, and those guys get why we like Star Wars. So I've got this show that I feel like this is the Star Wars I wanted. When they announced that they were going to do new stuff in 2011, this is the show that we should have gotten back then. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the world would be a Star Wars. Like, people don't even realize Disney paid more money for Star Wars than they paid for Marvel, right?
Wow.
And think about how much money they're making on those movies, and they paid more for Star Wars. So you can imagine how much their pocketbooks are hurting. So they're giving us everything in this show, everything we could have ever desired, right? So I loved it. 5 out of 5 for the whole episode, and then like the last 30 seconds, I give like a 17 out of 5 because we got Boba Fett back, and it's beautiful. And then I do want to. Nate brought up some great points about like the Tusken Raider, like that scene where he's trying to run away, and then like the Krayt Dragon comes out and eats him instead of the bantha. Because he's running so fast. It's so good. So again, like those little scenes, these scenes are like 10, 15 seconds, and they put so much thought and effort into this show. And the other thing I think about is the change we've seen in The Mandalorian from season 1. A lot of times shows will drop that stuff when they go to a new season, right? They backtrack. They want to reset things because they don't know what to do next. This one, it carries forward. This is episode. They even call it episode 9. They don't call it season 2, episode 1. You get that development, that growth that the Mandalorian's had. His And it's sort of like the lone wolf and cub thing he has with Baby Yoda, that he's this father figure now, and how he's guiding, he has to protect him, how he helps out the villagers and the Tusken Raiders work together. He's not just a bounty hunter anymore now, right? Now he's that hero character for the story. And so I love that they carry that forward, because we need Dave Filoni talks about this in one of the background episodes that SOC keeps telling everyone to watch, called Legacy, is for Mandalorian. We're going to the extra section. And Dave Filoni talks about how the thing George Lucas kept telling him is, like, you guys can't forget to give people hope, right? And as Christians, hope is something that's key to our faith, right? Like, this is in the background of what we think about every day, is that no matter what happens in this world, no matter what happens tomorrow, and for those that don't know what happens tomorrow, you live in the future when you've already lived through it, and you don't have to worry about it. So God bless you. We don't even have to worry about that stuff, because we know in the end that Christ is Lord, and none of this other stuff. No matter what happens, it's all in his hands, and he's guiding and protecting it. And that same idea, the world needs hope. And so I appreciate that they've sort of carried that forward here. And even in an episode that seems just like this little Western, like one-off, like here's Timothy Oliphant, here's this, here's that, they're carrying forward that feeling of hope. You watch it and you kind of feel this expression. So I'm rambling here, but I just...
Oh, you're doing good, man.
That's the stuff that, like, stands out to me when I watch this show now. It's this idea of, you know, Star Wars is about more than just, like, you know, gunfights and laser swords, but there's this idea of redemption and hope built into every single movie, into all these episodes of this show. And that redemption and hope is also what's important to us as Christians throughout all. We all need redemption. We all need hope, and so I love that they're carrying that forward through.
Definitely. As for me, of course, I give it 5 stars, no hesitation. I give it 5 stars when it opened up and he was walking down the Bronx. I mean, because, like, to me, that whole scene was just like, yo, now the Mandalorian got flavor. You know what I mean? So anyway, so I really love the show. The whole time I'm watching the Mandalorian, I'm looking for biblical undertones. And even when I'm watching Clone Wars, I love the little messages they give before the show. A lot of them have a lot of Christian theology and undertones that you can find in there. But all of the shows, one thing that I would say is the way I judge a show on whether it gets 5 stars all the time is whether I can watch it with anybody and it causes deep, meaningful conversations. You see, because, you know, a film could be really cool. I mean, it can have a lot of action. It can have a good storyline. If you don't talk about it afterwards, then it's just not, okay, it was good. But to me, Star Wars and the tones, and of course we talked about it last time. BK Abologist brought it up, where, you know, they're pulling on a lot of Eastern practices as well. So we're not saying that everything they pull out is Christian, but you can see some of the things that we can use as Christians to start conversations with individuals who may not have any relation to the gospel at all, but they love Star Wars, and we could start pulling on their heartstrings and you know, talk about things like, hey, you know, remember when the Tusken Raiders were, you know, fighting against the other people, and, you know, you could just think about like the Pharisees and the Gentiles. That's how they looked at each other. They didn't like each other, or so forth. I mean, you could start pulling in all these elements to have a conversation with someone. Shout out to Benjamin being omnipresent again. He's using the Force. Thanks for the super chat, bro. Thanks for being on here. I want everybody in this chat to give Benjamin Handelman a round of applause for once again making us look like we know what we're talking about when it comes to Star Wars. He saved our hides once again. You know, maybe we'll give you a big piece of meat at the end, just like the Mandalorian. And thanks for wearing the shirt, Ben. I truly appreciate you wearing the shirt. Sword of the Spirit. If you guys want a shirt like that, the link is in the description. But I do thank you for rocking that shirt. Again, one biblical undertone that I think Ben knocked out of the park is hope. As Christians, we have hope. This world is chaotic. It's terrible, you know. But there are redeeming qualities about the people who are here who put their faith in Christ. And also, just remember, when we have hope in Christ, this world doesn't look as bad, right? Always have an eternal perspective when you're walking and you're trying to help people with the gospel. Always think future. Don't think present all the time, because with that bad perspective, if you just think about the present, again, Psalm 73, you know, how Asaph just has his total perspective change because he considers the future instead of considering the present. And he says, when I consider their end, then that's when my mind returned to me. So as Christians, make sure you guys follow Christ. Thank you for hanging out with us. Make sure you guys subscribe to the BK Apologist. Make sure you subscribe to Bo Bichelle, Nay2D2, and of course, subscribe to Servant of Christ Ministries. And be sure to be on Saturday Night Live with SOC as we walk through another portion of Scripture. So if you guys like Bible verse, if you like studying the Bible, that's the show for you. This is the show to have some fun, kick back, chill out. Carmel Crunk, she said my shirt arrived today. Yeah, she got the same one, Ben, that you got. I think she got a long sleeve purple one, which it looks dope. It looks really cool. So Carmel, you got to take a picture with it. I'll put you on the show. And anybody who purchases a shirt, if you guys send me a picture of you in the shirt, I will post you up here and kind of shout you out, and you can get the cool Star Wars treatment and all that other stuff. Anyway, without further ado, I want to thank my whole panel for being here. Another round of applause for Ben for rocking out and doing a very, very good job and making us look smart. I truly appreciate it. So God bless you guys. Make sure you subscribe. If you want to support the ministry, check the links in the description box below.